Welcome to the Career Connections podcast, where recruiting leader Stephanie Alston and operations leader Amy Thompson share real-world insights to help you navigate the job market, build confidence, and find the right career fit. Let's get into today's episode.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming back to another episode of Career Connections. My name is Amy, one of the co-hosts here, along with Stephanie. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, how are you?
Good. And we are going to be talking about what to do when the job search isn't working. Again, my name is Amy Thompson, and I am the founder and CEO of Optiva Solutions Group, which is a strategic operations consulting firm. I have been doing that for about a year and a half now. Just moved to doing it full time, though. So I'm really excited about being a full time entrepreneur again. Stephanie, why don't you introduce yourself really quick?
Yes, I am Stephanie Austin, and I am the CEO of BGG Enterprises, and we connect executive job seekers to companies who are seeking to fill or outsource executive roles.
Perfect. Well, thank you for being here again. Like I said, this episode, we're going to be talking about what things people can do if their job search isn't going the way that they want it to go. For me, I just was in the job market for a couple of months and realized this is not for me. This is not what I want to be doing. I have been an entrepreneur full time before, then I went back into corporate America. Now I'm back again and realizing that this is probably the right place for me. So looking for part-time work, fractional work is my focus, right? And so we're going to talk about, like, how do you come to that decision? How do you come to making a decision on which way to go with your job search? So that's the focus of today's. But let's talk first about some things that you've seen, Stephanie, as you coach people on recruiting and coach people on searching for jobs. What are some of the kind of important things you want people to take note of and remember so that at least their job search has a strategy?
Yeah, so I first want to begin with I am seeing a little bit of good news as we start off January 2026 in the labor market right now. We are starting to see more job postings and less layoffs. I don't know if that's good or bad. Obviously, I don't know if everyone laid off last year, and we could be there. I don't know. But what I've discovered so far is that I am seeing an increase in job postings that I believe to be authentic, and I am hearing more and more job seekers getting job interviews. Now, when we want to talk about strategy, I think that it's important to note that we are still in the same position that we were in last year in terms of we are still seeing hundreds, if not thousands of people applying for one single role. Now, what I'm hearing from recruiters is that out of all those applicants who are applying, only about 10% of them are actually qualified to do the job, which obviously makes it really challenging for the recruiters to even get to your resume. But also, obviously, I know it gets discouraging for job seekers out there. So the number one strategy that I am encouraging lots of folks to do, and I think I've said in another episode, is once you apply for jobs, be intentional and go find the recruiter for that role. LinkedIn makes it easy because sometimes it does list out who the hiring manager is for the role. And it never hurts to send them a message after you apply to say, hey, I applied for this role. And it may seem a little pointless, but it's a great strategy because Amy and I always talk about how you want to make sure you remain at the top of mind to recruiters and hiring managers. And so just know that quick note could be the difference between you getting an interview and you not getting one. So that's the top thing that I could say that you can start doing today. Apply for a job. Don't worry about how many folks have applied, but apply and then reach out. So I think that's where we want to start today when we talk about strategy.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I was just, I think this morning, when I was on LinkedIn and people were having a discussion, somebody made a post about, I think they were on the HR side and just how many people send generic resumes when they do apply to these jobs. And then the comments were around, whether you should tailor your resume and things like that. And so I do think and I want you to talk about this a little bit too, this idea of quantity versus quality, right? Like I feel like finding a job is a numbers game, right?
Yeah.
So it makes sense that if you apply to 100 jobs, you should get some interviews. But if you apply to 100 jobs in a certain period of time, are you really taking the time to really understand the company and make sure you're a right fit and tailor your resume? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that kind of like spraying out your resume or just applying to everything versus being more intentional, like you said, when
Yeah.
you apply?
So that's a little tricky for me because in the past, I've often told folks apply for as many jobs as you possibly can. And I mean, and I say that because like you said, it is a numbers game. But I also understand your point about quantity over or no. Yes. No.
Or
Quality
quality.
yeah, quality or quantity, yes. I understand that point, but I try not to give that advice to a lot of
Mm,
people because I understand that a lot of people are in desperate situations
mm,
and they're not worried about a culture fit. They're just like, I can fit into the culture once I get the job. Like I have to pay
mm,
my bills. I can't worry about if I'm a culture fit or not, or I can't worry about is it hybrid or if it's remote. I just need a job. And so I
mm,
think you have to evaluate your own personal situation and determine what exactly is your posture in this job search, right? Am I just looking to get a job just to get by? Or am I looking for a company where I can connect and where I can grow and possibly get to another level at some point in my career? What are your career objectives? I say start there. Now, if you know that you are looking for a company long term where you are willing and ready to grow, and that's it, like you don't want to be job hopping, I would highly suggest that you focus at that point on quality. Make sure you're reading every single application, tailoring your resume, writing a cover letter. A lot of people don't write cover letters, but I've also heard some recruiters say that that is what separates a lot of candidates is the cover letter.
mm,
Not always, but sometimes. Um, but again, but if you're just in a point where you're just desperate, and I don't mean desperate like in a negative way, but you really need a job right away, you probably don't have time to be focused on writing the perfect cover letter and tailoring each resume. And I know that may sound like horrible advice for the recruiters who are out there, but it's true, right? If you're just looking to get a job right away, you just see the job description or you see the job title and you just hit apply. I get
mm.
it. It is what it is. So if you fall more into that category, then obviously, yeah, just keep sending out your resumes. But even still, if you're just sending them out, it's still really important that you have some kind of follow up strategy, whether
Yeah.
you're trying to find someone who already works in a company and have them make an introduction for you, whether that's sending the note on LinkedIn or my favorite thing, going on Apollo, finding the email address, reaching out to leaders directly within the company and asking them, hey, could you pull my resume? I applied. Here's my resume attached to this email. All those things to say that I think it just depends on where you are in your job search that will help you identify which one of those strategies you need to adopt.
Yeah. So a couple of things you mentioned. One, I think it's interesting. You kind of brought up a hybrid role, right? Because even if you're applying and focused on quantity and you're just applying to everything, you're still recommending that you follow up, right?
Right.
That you reach out to people, let them know. So that's still a little bit on the quality side in that you're not just letting, kind of hoping, right, that the ATS will pick up your resume. So that's good. I think that's good advice. The other thing you brought up was the cover letter. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the cover letter when you should create one. Some people say it's just a waste of time. Nobody reads it. Some people say it shows that you're more thoughtful. Like, what are your thoughts as a recruiter about having a cover letter?
Well, I think it depends, right? Because well, some of you all may not know, but I've also done a ton of recruiting within the sports industry, and the golden standard within sports is to use an ATS system called Teamwork. Well, in
Mm,
Teamwork, it shows your profile picture and your cover letter before you see the resume. And so, obviously, if you have your profile picture and your cover letter, I'm not going to have to scroll down as much to be able to read what experience you have.
yep.
So in those roles, I found that having a cover letter makes you stand out because I'm not having to figure out why you're applying for this job, what experience you have, etc. Whereas there are other ATS systems like Workday, like Greenhouse, like ICMS, I think it's called. All those platforms, they don't necessarily show the cover letter first. So in
Mm,
those cases, maybe you don't need a cover letter. I think and I know it's hard to know as a job seeker what the backside of the ATS
yeah.
system looks like. Um, but I mean, I think that's my only reason why I even encourage a cover letter at times is because I do know that there are some platforms that show you the cover letter before they show you anything else.
Yeah.
So just FYI, there are some companies that do require a cover letter in the application process. I encourage you if they're requiring it, write a cover letter. Don't put not applicable. I've seen some people attach blank Word documents just to be able to get through the system. No, if they require
Mm,
it, write it because that shows that they're going to read it.
Mhm.
Maybe that ATS system does show the cover letter first. I don't know. So I think if you think about it more thoughtfully and strategic based off of how the application is laid out, I think that should give you at least a small indicator on if you should write a cover letter or not.
Yeah. No, that's good feedback, and I think you're right, the ATS does determine a little bit of that for you because sometimes it's a required
Yeah,
field to upload it, sometimes it's optional, and then sometimes it doesn't say cover letter at all.
right.
It just says upload your resume, and so that's something to think about. Again, it comes back to having the right strategy. What are you looking to accomplish?
Yeah.
Just any job or, a specific type of job, so I think that's great feedback. What about switching gears a little bit, what about getting feedback, right? So let's say you have applied to those 100 jobs and you're not getting interviews. Maybe you out of 100, you've only gotten 1 or 2 interviews. How do you get feedback so that I mean, am I applying to the right things? Am I telling the right story? Is my resume good? What are some suggestions for getting feedback?
Yeah. So first of all, if you are applying to hundreds of jobs and you're not getting interviews, first take a deep breath. Like I actually heard a recruiter say the other day, it's not you, it's the market. So
Mm,
understand that you not receiving feedback, there are lots of things that are at play. I mean, you're fighting against the ATS system, you're fighting against AI technology that's also reading your resume. And sometimes you're just fighting against so many applicants on one role, they just don't see it. It
yeah,
doesn't mean that you're always unqualified, right? And I think some early indicators of knowing that it's not you, it's just the system that you're fighting against is if you apply for a job and you notice immediately you're getting a rejection letter. Obviously, nobody has had the opportunity to read over your resume. An immediate rejection tells you that there's some kind of point system within the ATS
mm,
system that's blocking you for getting that resume. So, what I will say that if you want feedback, even in those situations, I always lean on Apollo. I feel like I should have a sponsorship from them at this point. But if you have access to a platform like Apollo, there are other ones out there that I just can't think of right now. Rocket Reach is another one. If you utilize those platforms, identify the companies that you want the feedback from, right? So let's say if you apply for a job at Apple, find the head of talent acquisition at Apple, or even someone at the lower, a recruiter, senior recruiter, and ask them, hey, I recently applied for this job. Here's my resume. I got a rejection letter. Do you have a second to give me some feedback? Written feedback is okay. And just ask. I mean, it
mm,
never hurts to ask.
right.
That's one thing you can do. Something else you could also do. I know feedback can be subjective based off of the recruiter or the hiring manager and whatever it is they're looking for, because Amy can speak to this. Sometimes it's not that you don't have the right experience. Sometimes they're looking for more years of experience. Sometimes they're looking for someone who has a mix between multiple experiences. Sometimes there are some companies like tech companies who only want to hire people who've been at the big tech companies. There are
Mhm,
so many little things that could be disqualifying you. But all that to say that even if you just want general feedback on, say, your resume or your approach, reach out to a recruiter who's in your network and say, hey, do you mind giving me some feedback on my resume? Maybe it's helpful, maybe it's not. But I mean, I think you take what you believe is true, and then you just forget about all the rest and just move forward, because there's nothing wrong in business. Let me use an example. In business, we use a thing called A/B testing to figure out what works and what doesn't work. There's nothing wrong with A/B testing your resume, right? So,
mhm,
like, if you find yourself not getting responses from one resume, create another one. There's so many tools out
yeah,
there that help you rewrite your resume. There's resume.co, which I love, because it allows you to upload your job description along with your resume, and it helps you tailor your resume to the job description. But then also, I utilize Claude, which
mm,
is another AI platform similar to ChatGPT, where you can literally, again, upload your resume, the job description, and say, hey, I want to tailor my resume to this job description. Can you help me? And Claude spits out a Google document for you that lays out a new resume based off that job description. So again, that gives you the opportunity to A/B test quicker, because you're not having to literally go through yourself and recreate the resume. You're just using tools and resources around you to be able to get it done. So that's another option. I mean, and then also, just to throw it out there, you can upload your resume to any AI platform like ChatGPT, like Claude, like Gemini, and say, hey, could you give me feedback on my resume? And again, you might love it, you might hate it, but take what
yeah,
you think is important, and just move forward without the rest.
yeah. No, I think that's great. And I a couple of things you touched on. One is people probably don't ask for feedback enough. And I
Yeah.
know back in, my HR days, if anyone that was a part of our interview process for any type of role asked for feedback, I always gave it because it was so rare. It was probably one out of 200 people who would actually ask for feedback. If you let them know somebody else was chosen, usually they would just say, well, I'm disappointed, but good luck or whatever. And it's like, that's your prime opportunity to say, could you give me 2 or 3 pointers? And so I definitely agree with that suggestion. And then using AI is also a wonderful suggestion. The thing I'll add to that is in your prompts, make sure you are being really specific. So if
Mhm.
you know who the hiring manager was or you know who the recruiter was, put their name in there and just say, do some research on this person and review my resume as if you're that person.
Mm.
Give me some thoughts on what they're looking for. And then the AI will scour the internet and be like, oh, this person does a podcast about this. So they might be more interested in this. Same thing for feedback. You don't just want to get generic feedback, but just say, act as if you are a recruiter for, one of the bigger recruiting firms in the Southeast, whatever.
I
But
love
give it some context to give you that feedback. Human
right.
feedback, I think, is the best. But if you don't know anybody to reach out to or you're not comfortable reaching out to that company, then absolutely use one of the AI tools to do that, but be really specific. But I think feedback is something in general in business people don't do enough of. Getting
Right.
feedback from your customers, from your employees, and certainly in your job search, things are not going the way that you would like them to go. There's probably something you need to change. And in order to do that, you need to get some feedback. All
Yeah.
right. So
But
great
wait,
information.
let me say something
Yeah.
really quick about that because you said something that I thought was really good in terms of like prompting. I also
Yep.
just had a thought maybe it's also helpful for you to say, hey, scour the internet and see who worked this job last. Help me tailor my resume based off of some of the things that they've laid
Yeah.
out on their online profiles. That's
Yeah.
also helpful. And then another thing that I wanted to mention as it relates to feedback is I think sometimes people are afraid of the feedback because they take
Yeah.
it personally. But I'll
Yep.
tell you, there have been times, Amy, where I've had candidates reach out and ask for feedback. And the feedback is literally, we didn't know who to pick. We just had to pick somebody. And it's
Oh,
not that, I mean, but the thing is that
yeah.
yeah, sometimes you have two really good candidates and they're very different, but it's just like, guys, we don't know. And it comes down to a vote, and maybe one person gets more votes than the
Yeah.
other. And
Yeah.
I know that's not necessarily helpful feedback because you're just like, well, why didn't I get picked? Sometimes it could be like, oh, well, I related to this person because they had a kid, or it could
Yeah.
be something so small in the
Yeah.
conversation that makes you stand out. So don't be afraid of even that feedback because then again, it shows you it's not necessarily that you're not good enough or you're the wrong candidate for the role. Sometimes it really just comes down to like a single vote. I mean, think about American Idol. It comes down to a single vote and the other person just got one more vote. I mean, it sucks, but that's also a reality in recruiting as
Yeah.
well.
No, I like that, and it reminds me a couple years ago, I had applied for this position that I just knew was mine, and it was, at a university actually, um, and there were, I wanna say 5 people in the kind of review process, and one of the people who actually ran the department, he was like, "Amy, I really want you to come and join the team," all this stuff, but just like you said, he got outvoted. There
Yeah.
was me and one other candidate, and they ended up going with someone that had more financial experience. I think this person was a previous CFO. Um, and it was tough, right? I mean, what you spoke on is kind of that mental aspect because you know that you can do the job. You feel like you're qualified to do the job, but our companies and business are run by people, and
Yeah.
people are not rational. They're emotional. And
Yeah.
so they're going to choose the person that they think they want to work with. And sometimes it's not about your background. Sometimes it's not about your skill or your capability. It is about your personality. It is about your style. And so I think it's hugely important. Mindset is something I want to go to next. Hugely important to try not to take things personally. It's hard, but to
Yeah.
try not to take things personally, just take from the experience, what can you learn to be better? What can you learn for the next one? But I do want you to go into a little bit more about mindset and how you stay positive and stay focused a little bit when you are dealing with rejection, probably more than normal in this market,
Right.
or you're dealing with silence. You're not even getting getting responded back to. But how do you recommend people deal with that kind of mental side of it, that mind shift side of it?
Yeah, I think the biggest way you can deal with it is every day, just remind yourself it's a new day. Don't worry about yesterday's rejections. And that may seem really cheesy, but like sometimes you really do have to give yourself that encouragement
Yeah.
because I mean, I'll even speak for me personally. My background is in journalism and mass communications. And so I started my career off doing PR very heavily, public relations. And there would be times where I did not hear from news reporters for days, and that's not a good thing when you're working in public relations. You always need to be able to hear from reporters. But I literally had to get to a point where I'm just like, today's a new day. I'm going to hear back from someone. And
Mhm.
I realized that once my mindset shifted, I no longer operated in a place of defeat, but in victory every single day.
Mhm.
And again, it may sound cheesy, but like that mindset shift is really important because if
Yep.
you begin your day with defeat, like, oh, nobody's going to read my resume, or
Mhm.
I don't even know why I'm applying for these jobs. No one's going to get back. You've already lost half the battle when you lose it in your
Yep.
mind. So you have
Yep.
to tell yourself every day. I mean, my dad used to always say mind over matter, and I have to encourage him about that now. Like mind over matter. Like
Mhm.
you have to tell yourself every day, or shoot, even every second, you can do it. You can apply for more jobs, or
Mhm.
what you're doing is not in vain. And I'll even say this, and again, Amy, I'm sure you've experienced this too. There could be a time where you're not hearing from any jobs, and then
Mhm.
all of a sudden you start hearing back from everybody.
Mhm.
Sometimes it literally just takes a couple days or even weeks and months, but once things start rolling, you'll find your mindset will shift and doors will start flying open. I
Yeah.
can't explain why it happens or how it happens. I don't know, it just does.
Yeah.
So just try really hard not to be discouraged by it. I know it's easy to. I'm sure those who are listening, some of you guys have been in the market now for maybe even over a year, and I get it. It can be very discouraging. But just keep going. Mind over matter for sure.
Yeah. No, I like that. And staying positive,
Yeah.
and timing is so important.
Mhm.
Like you said, you could go weeks and weeks without hearing anything from anybody, and then all of a sudden things change. Timing is really important. So I want to shift now to networking,
Okay.
right? I think one of the things that I learned about networking when I was working full time, I kind of lost it, right? And I thought about, I don't know, I guess in my mind, networking was more of when you need something, right? Which is
Yeah.
terrible, right? That shouldn't be the point of it. And then once I stopped working full time and I was looking for work, there were all of these people. I'm like, I haven't talked to this person in like a year. I
Yeah.
felt terrible about reaching out to people that I haven't talked to in a while. So the thing I want to encourage people on is make sure you nurture your network all the time, no matter where you are in life. But when you do have um, an opportunity you're trying to pursue, or a new business, new job, whatever the case may be, I think that people forget that folks in your network, if they're real, if your network is real, they want to help you and they want to be supportive. So I just wanted to share. I got introduced to a networking group full of people who were unemployed or thinking that they were going to be laid off soon or something like that. And it was amazing. It wasn't some pity party, right? We would have calls every week, but it was really about what's going on, what are you seeing in the market, and then how can we help each other?
Wow.
Because just because I don't run a $10 million company doesn't mean I don't know somebody who does. So if
Yeah.
I know what you're looking for, I know what your skills are. It doesn't matter if we haven't worked together, but I could at least tell you about something that I know about. And so I want you to talk a little bit about networking and how that can help you in your job search.
Yeah.
In a lot of different, I think there's a lot of different ways, but I'd love to hear your thoughts about networking.
Yeah, I think networking is really important. It's something that I am not great at, especially when you think about networking in the traditional sense. Avi and I talk about it all the time.
Yeah,
But I remember my mom always used to say, it's not about who you know, but who knows you.
that's
And
right.
that comes from building a really strong network. I mean, I can even speak to, um, gosh, early in my career, I used to make a joke. I was everyone's intern, like from healthcare to technology to entertainment. Like I was really in college trying to figure out what I wanted to do whenever I graduated. So I was intentional about jumping industries. And what I found is like being everyone's intern as I became older. I mean, gosh, even 10 to 15 years later, I'm still connected to those people.
Mhm.
And so whenever they need someone to do, we'll even say PR, right? Because that's what many of them know me for.
Right,
They'll
right.
send over PR clients to me, or they'll
Hmm.
send over PR jobs and say, hey, are you interested? In fact, I was an intern for this entertainment company when I was in college. And 10 years later, someone said she remembered me and she asked me to ghostwrite a book with her. And as crazy as that sounds, because I will say when I graduated from college, I struggled to find a job initially. And I
Yeah.
was just like, I just intern for everyone. Why can't I find a job? But again, that woman 10 years later, when I was a full adult, remembered me as an intern, reached out to me and was like, hey, I remember when we were working together, you said that you were writing even then. Like, would you be open to ghostwriting a book with me? And I'm like, random, but like, sure. And I mean, it's just those little things. So, like, that's what Amy said. It's really important for you to network and keep your relationship solid, even when
Yeah.
you don't need anything, because you never know who's watching. You never know who may need you in a few years. And the number one thing that Amy said first is timing. Everything is about timing, and it's so interesting. I have an 11-year-old daughter. A couple weeks ago, I was just thinking to myself, like, man, like things do not seem to be falling into place in life the way I want them to. And my daughter just comes into the room. I didn't say this out loud, I'm just thinking it. And she was like, sometimes it's not about the things that you're not doing right. Sometimes it's just the wrong time. And like when she said it to me, I was just like,
She's like a little psychic.
he is, yeah. And I literally, just full transparency, I walked out the room and cried because I'm just like, I needed that in that moment. But she was right. She really was right. It's like
Yeah.
it's the timing of it all. And like Amy
Yeah.
said, so don't allow you feeling like it's not the right time or things not happening the way that you think they should. Don't let that stop you from networking, because the person that you meet today, they might not help you tomorrow. Maybe they're going to help you in 2 years, in 3
That's
years.
right.
Just continue to cultivate the relationship while you can, because you just never know when things could fall into place at the right time for things to work out for, that referral to work out in your favor.
Yeah. And I think the other thing I'll share about networking is don't think that you have to have thousands of people or something. It's not
For
the
sure.
size of your network, it's really the quality. And
Yeah.
then it's just being, like you say, consistent, and then just keeping in touch, check in with people, right? So whether you're fully employed or you're running your business or you're in search of employment, whatever the case may be, just check in with people. If they post something, check it out, engage with it, but just let people see that you're supportive, because again, you just never know when somebody might have something for you. It could be 6 months from now, but they'll remember seeing your name. Oh, I remember Amy did such and
Yep.
such. Then they'll reach out to you. And that is how it works. That's how life works sometimes. So,
Yeah.
but no, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So as we wrap up, this has been a great discussion. And again, the purpose was really just to think about what are some of the strategies and things you can do if the job search is not going the way you'd like it to go. Any final thoughts that you'd like to share with the audience, Stephanie?
Yeah, and I know we've said this over a couple of episodes, but I think it's important that we reiterate. The market is a little rocky right now, but just continue to stay positive. Continue to apply. Just be more strategic in how you apply, especially right now. Like I said, there are more jobs that I see that are opening. So just make sure you're strategic. And we are hopeful for all of you who are looking that you will find something this year.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for being here, Stephanie, and joining me again. And thank you all for listening. And we certainly, I want to say again, stay positive. Things happen usually when they are supposed to happen and not always when we want them to happen. So stay patient and stay positive, but continue with your job search. Just make sure you have the right strategy that works for you. And if something isn't working, try something else. Test
Yep.
things out. And you'll find something that is in line with what your goals are. So thank you again, everybody, for joining us, and we will see you soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Career Connections podcast with Stephanie and Amy. Connect with us on LinkedIn for more career tips, resources, and conversations that help you grow with confidence.